Hello there, Stevos, and welcome back to another episode of Steve's Movie Wrap-Up right here on my YouTube channel, SteveOfficial. Now, before we do get into this week's episode of the Movie Wrap-Up, there is one movie review that I forgot to do last week, which I did watch for the first time. So, if I just move over here, and if the person editing this video just pops up a poster of this movie that I'm about to talk about. It is The Dead Don't Die, which was released in 2019, and I gave The Dead Don't Die 2 stars over on Letterboxd. So I'll just very quickly run through my review of that for last week, and then obviously we'll go into the movies that I've watched this week. So, The Dead Don't Die is a film that was released back in 2019. I do remember seeing this film being reviewed by critics, and I believe it may have had mixed reviews by critics when it was released in 2019. And yes, I did back in 2019 want to see this film. However, I believe that the cinema had limited screenings for this, and then this film ended up being put on the back burner for what now appears to be 7 years after the release of the film. You see, I left this film for 7 years before I finally decided to watch this one, and I still can't get over the fact that 2019 was 7 years ago. So, after a 7-year wait, what did I think of The Dead Don't Die? The Dead Don't Die is a film that I managed to watch 10 days before it left the streaming service Amazon Prime Video here in the UK. And I didn't even know it was on the streaming service until I was looking through to see what movies were leaving the streaming service soon. So, as soon as I saw that was leaving, I instantly knew I needed to watch it before it left. But The Dead Don't Die does feature a stacked cast list with Tilda Swinton, Bill Murray, Adam Driver, and Selena Gomez all starring in this movie. Now, The Dead Don't Die is classed as a horror and is also classed as a comedy movie as well. The use of horror and the gore in this I thought was done rather well, and I do appreciate the way how the zombies do look in this film. The makeup department did a great job. With making the zombies look scary. And yes, this is a horror comedy featuring zombies, by the way. But in terms of the comedy, though, it is a little hit or miss. It is dry humour. However, I did have a couple of chuckles here and there throughout the running time. Speaking of running time, by the way, The Dead Don't Die does clock in at 1 hour and 44 minutes. And it also does tend to use the same song over and over again throughout the film as well. Is The Dead Don't Die a film that I am going to rewatch again in the future? Likely not. For me, this is probably a film that I will watch once and once only. But nevertheless, though, I still appreciate this movie for what it is worth. And in another surprising turn of events as well, this movie wasn't even on the watch list on Letterboxd either. So, do I recommend watching The Dead Don't Die? Well, if you are looking for a comedy horror film to watch that has a stacked, well-known cast and has zombies in it, then sure, I would say check this one out for yourselves, even if, like me, you will watch this film just the once and once only. But The Dead Don't Die is available to buy and rent on digital platforms right now. Anyway, take off the poster off the screen. Let me just, for a few seconds, move back so I'm centre in front of the camera like this. There we go. I don't know why I forgot to review The Dead Don't Die last week. I've got no idea why. that wasn't my intention to forget to review it, but nevertheless, I reviewed it now. So anyway, so that was The Dead Don't Die. Obviously, coming up in this episode of the movie wrap-up, there is actually a couple of movies that I am going to review in this video, where I've rewatched the first movie, and then I've gone on to watch the sequel for the first time, okay? So I'm not going to do a review of the first movie, but I'm going to do a review of the sequel of that movie. So a little bit of a spoiler warning here. The movies that I have reviewed this week that are sequels that I have watched for the first time is Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and also as well Influencers as well. Now Influencers is a movie that is actually streaming on Shudder. I remember watching Influencer when it came out back in 2022. Influencers came out in 2025, towards the end of 2025. And I can't believe it's taken me about 5 months to watch Influencers, because I really enjoyed watching Influencer on the horror streaming service Shudder back in 2022. Anyway, I think that might be the only movies that I have watched that are sequels. Yes, that's the only movies that I have watched that are sequels based on the first film. So yeah, so that's a little bit of a spoiler warning for you for this video. Also as well, there is a couple of other films that I have watched this week, which I'm going to review in this episode of the movie wrap-up right here on my YouTube channel, SteveOfficial. So, without further ado, even though I've probably given you the first movie that we're going to be talking about in this episode, which is Five Nights at Freddy's 2, but you know what? Roll the titles! You're watching Steve's Movie Wrap-Up, episode 95, right here on my YouTube channel, SteveOfficial. The first movie we'll be reviewing in this episode is Five Nights at Freddy's 2. So, as mentioned, obviously the first movie I have watched in this week is Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which I gave 2 stars over on Letterboxd. So Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was first released back in 2025, and yes, this did have some decent screenings at my local cinema at the time, but I wasn't in any rush to give this film a watch. But now that I have seen the sequel to 2023's Five Nights at Freddy's, what did I think of it? I'll be honest, this film is somewhat a little more watchable than the first film. This is only a minor improvement compared to the first film, however, though, it is rather frustrating because with a film about a video game, which is a horror video game, by the way, they can have so much potential with making this film scary and gory, but sadly, because they keep the age rating in the US a PG-13, which here in the UK is about a 12A/15 rated film. They sadly can't make this too scary and gory because they are targeting this more at teens, young teens, than anyone else. There is a scene in this film where this animatronic, Chica, who is voiced by Megan Fox, by the way, becomes rather threatening towards this teacher, and she says she wants to see what's inside his mind. And we see this teacher being picked up by Chica. We see what looks like his head about to be crushed, but it happens off screen. When the teacher dies, we just see a shot of his glasses on the floor. So in terms of this being a horror, this feels so much more of a tame horror movie that sadly, just like the first film, I won't remember watching in a few days. Josh Hutcherson is back as well as Matthew Lillard as well. We also have Megan Fox, as mentioned, who voices Chica, and McKenna Grace also stars in this film as well. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 does come with a running time that does clock in at 1 hour and 47 minutes. So this is just 2 minutes longer than the first one, which obviously clocked in at 1 hour and 45 minutes. I do believe that a third Five Nights at Freddy's has been confirmed to be in the works, and the ending to this film does set up for a third film as well. I will likely see the third film in cinemas when it does come out, but what I would love to see is this be a straight up, scary, gory horror movie that doesn't hold back. I don't think, sadly, we will get that given how tame the first two films were. But a guy could dream, I suppose. But Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is available to buy and rent on digital platforms right now. Influencers. Now, before I do go on to Influences, which is the next film that I'm going to be talking about here on my movie wrap-up, just very quickly, going back to Five Nights at Freddy's, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, I do have Five Nights at Freddy's and Five Nights at Freddy's 2 on my digital purchase list over on Amazon Prime. Reason being is because I actually got them on a deal, and they weren't expensive either. You know, when a film becomes like, I don't know, when a film becomes really cheap, like, I don't know, let's say Amazon have got a sale on for a film that's really bad, like, I don't know, let's say, well, actually, I'll give you a prime example, Madame Web, for example. I have Madame Web on my digital purchase list. Why? Because even though it's a terrible film, even though it's a film that maybe I'll tend to go back and revisit from time to time, but I got it really cheap, like for $3.99. And a film like that, by the way, is worth $3.99. It's not worth $9.99. It's not worth $13.99. And it's definitely not worth $19.99, you know, when it's on home premiere. That's for sure. Films like Madame Web, Five Nights at Freddy's, even Five Nights at Freddy's 2, they're just worth $3.99 to watch. Anyway, that's my rant over for that. But I do have both Five Nights at Freddy's, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I do have them on my digital purchase list on Amazon, partly because of the fact that I got them cheap, you know? And films like that, you deserve to have them when they're $3.99 on Amazon. That's it. Anyway, back to the movie wrap-up though. Influences is the next film that I did watch, which I've actually given a really, really big star rating for here on Letterboxd. I gave this film 4.5 stars over on Letterboxd. This is the first time that I have seen the sequel Influencers following the release of Influencer a few years ago, back in 2022, on the horror streaming service Shudder. And I am going to be honest here, it's very rare for a sequel to be much better than the first movie. And this is one of those examples of a sequel being better than the first movie. Hence the extra half a star rating for this film. So, what did I think of Influencers? Now, obviously, when I did review Influencer back in 2022, I gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd. This, obviously, I gave 4.5 stars on Letterboxd. Again, before I continue with this review, I said here, you know, that obviously it's very rare for a sequel to be much better than the original. Just going back to Five Nights at Freddy's 2, I said that the film was more watchable. Didn't say it was better than the first film. It was just watchable. More watchable. Okay? It's a difference. Anyway, there is one thing that did bug me. There is one question that was asked throughout the running time of the film, which never really got answered, and I quite frankly don't think will ever get answered. Now, if you haven't seen the first film, then beware, because I am going to kind of spoil the ending to the first one here, because when we last saw CW, She was trapped on this island after an influencer she kidnapped and left to die on an island, fought back at the end of the first film, and then took the boat, leaving CW on the island. Now, in the sequel, we see CW in a completely different location. We see her in France. We see that she is loved up with this new girlfriend called Diane. She's happy, although it isn't long until we see her get jealous of one character that Diane is spending a lot of time with. And, let's face it, the character we see spending a lot of time with Diane, well, it doesn't end well for that character. I will say, just like the first film, the scenery in this film that we see when the film is set in France is really nice, and the same can be said when the other parts of the film is set in Bali. The scenes there are really well shot in terms of cinematography. I am also going to say that I can't help but feel like the sequel is more bloodier and slightly more gorier than the first film. And the blood/gore scenes in here are well captured. We do see towards the end of the film, Madison, who was the influencer kidnapped in the first film and left to die on an island. We do see her come face to face with CW once again in this film. Emily Tennant does return to the role of Madison, who she played in the first film, and Cassandra Nord is back in the role of CW as well. I feel as though the final act of the film does go so crazy that I actually did end up enjoying the final act scenes play out. As for the running time, the film does shave a lot more breathing space. The film does have a lot more breathing space here, as the first film came with a running time of 1 hour 30 minutes, whereas the sequel has a running time clocking in at 1 hour and 50 minutes. Do we think we will get a third influencer film? Well, nothing has been confirmed yet, but you know what? If the films are going to be this good every time, then I wouldn't say no to seeing what a third installment has in store. Do I recommend watching Influencers? Yes, if you have seen the first one that came out a few years ago, then I would recommend watching this one. It did come out towards the end of 2025, and I know it has taken me a while to get around to watching it, but I am glad that I have now seen this film for myself. And would I rewatch Influencers again in the future? Definitely, for sure, I can see me rewatching this film in the future. Influencers is now streaming over on the horror streaming service that is Shudder. The Mortuary Assistant. And we are sticking with the horror streaming service Shudder, because I have watched another movie this week on the streaming service, which is in the form of The Mortuary Assistant, which I only gave 1 star over on Letterboxd. I don't think I have ever heard of The Mortuary Assistant as a video game before, but I have seen this one pop up on horror streaming service Shudder a fair few times over this past month, and given that it hasn't long been released, I decided to check this one out. So what did I think of The Mortuary Assistant? I am not going to spend too long reviewing this one, because let's face it, a lot of people have said this movie is bad, that the video game is far better than this movie that has come out. It feels like a movie that was dropped for straight to streaming rather than being released theatrically, and now that I have seen this movie for myself, am I going to remember watching this in a few days' time? I very highly doubt it. The running time is thankfully rather short, clocking in at 1 hour 30 minutes, and the acting in this film is rather wooden, to be honest. Not only that, but I am also going to say that most of the scenes I saw in this movie was just way too dark. I'm not talking about the story-wise, I mean the scenes itself are just too dark that you can barely see what is going on. The film isn't really effective at all, and also there is some use of CGI in here, and it is just blatantly obvious that it is CGI as well. There is no hiding it. Would I recommend watching The Mortuary Assistant? I definitely would say don't bother watching this film if you are looking for a horror film to watch. And is this movie going to be something that I revisit, rewatch again? I hardly doubt it, given my review for the film and the star rating I have given for the film. For me, I would say that this is going to be a watch once and once only film. But The Mortuary Assistant is now streaming over on the horror streaming service that is Shudder. I Heart Willy. Next up is I Heart Willy, which sounds so wrong. So wrong. Which I gave 1 star over on Letterboxd, by the way. I was going to buy this film to keep on digital because, well, for context, I find it funny that they have turned Steamboat Willie, aka the original Mickey Mouse, by the way, into this horror movie icon in the low-budget horror movie universe. I have noticed in the last few weeks, however, this film has become available to watch as part of my Amazon Prime subscription. So, what did I think of I Heart Willy? Already, the title of the film sounds so weird to me and sounds so wrong at the same time. Not sure if that was actually what they were going for here, but take the title out of context and tell someone you watched a film called I Heart Willy. Trust me, you will probably get some weird looks. Let's cut to the chase here. This film wasn't great, but then again, what was I expecting from a low-budget horror movie, given the fact that Steamboat Willie is available for people out there to get creative? Thankfully, this isn't part of the Pooniverse or the Twisted Childhood universe either. There is some blood and gore in here, however, though, it does that thing that we always tend to see in low-budget horror movies, where we have a close-up of the character in pain, screaming, while all the stabbing is happening off screen. It is such a cliche when it comes to low-budget horrors like this one. I did think I was going to find this somewhat interesting, but sadly I didn't, although I did laugh at one part of the film where we came across this character who ironically is called Jesus, and he is hiding away from Mr. Mouse. The running time does clock in at 1 hour 30 minutes, and is this a horror movie I would recommend watching? Definitely don't bother. And as for whether I will revisit, rewatch this film again, this is going to be a watch once and once only. But I Heart Willy is available to watch on Amazon Prime Video in the UK, and is also available to buy and rent on digital platforms as well. And before I do move on to the next film, given the fact that I've seen this film and given the fact that I've watched it the once and once only, yeah, I'm not buying this film to keep on digital. Forget about it. Forget about it. Stitchheads. And the final film that I have watched this week is Stitchhead, which I gave 2 stars over on Letterboxd. I watched Stitchhead, which, by the way, I do believe did have a limited theatrical release here in the UK, but I didn't get to see it. So I ended up waiting to get this one on digital platforms, and now that I have seen this one, what did I think of Stitchhead? Rob Bryson, Asa Butterfield and Joel Fry lend their voices in this family animated movie, and when I first hit play on this film, I was worried that this wasn't going to be my kind of animated film, as in I wasn't going to be the primary target audience, that this film was going to be more aimed for preschoolers. But I think after the first 10 minutes of the film, I was wrong, because I feel as though this is an animated film that no matter the age range, you will get some enjoyment out of this film, because I did enjoy watching Stitchhead. The animation in this I thought was rather decent. It did feel like a modern animation, and also I thought that the story had a lot of heart to it as well. So even though you may want to put your children in front of this film, and they may get more enjoyment out of this than the average adult, but if, like me, you are an adult and looking for a decent animation to watch, then I would recommend giving this one a watch for sure. The running time does clock in at 1 hour 32 minutes as well, so it is a film that doesn't outstay its welcome. Would I be happy to rewatch Stitchhead again sometime in the future? I definitely would say so. But for now though, Stitchhead is available to buy and rent on digital platforms right now. And that is all the movies that I have watched over this past week here on the movie wrap up and reviewed as well. Now, coming up next week, I am going to be watching The Devil Wears Prada 2, Mortal Kombat 2, I'm also going to be watching The Sheep Detectives, and I'm also going to be watching Obsession. Now, there is a chance, by the way, that I could be seeing Obsession 2 days before the release of the film, because Odeon are doing a Scream Unseen. There's been a couple of clues already that have dropped on their social media pages, and a lot of it does lead towards Curry Barker, who is the director of Obsession, and a lot of that leads to Obsession being the secret film that Odeon are dropping on Wednesday evening at the cinema this week. I've never done a Scream Unseen before. I would love to do a Scream Unseen, so if it is Obsession, that's going to make my first Scream Unseen film rather special, to be quite honest. But even if it's not going to be Obsession, even if it was something different, regardless, I think I'll appreciate the film. And regardless, I will see Obsession as we get towards the end of the week, regardless. So if you do want to hear my thoughts on the movie Obsession, Devil Wears Prada 2, Mortal Kombat 2, and The Sheep Detectives, and you know what, right? I've never seen Mortal Kombat that came out in 2021, and I've never seen The Devil Wears Prada, which came out 20 years ago this year in 2026. 20 years ago, which was obviously 2006. I've never seen them, so obviously I'll review the first Devil Wears Prada and the first Mortal Kombat in next week's episode of the movie wrap-up as well. So that is coming up in next week's episode of the movie wrap-up. I don't think there's going to be any other films that I'm going to be watching other than them next week, because I've got a lot going on next week, and I've obviously got some filming to do as well as part of my Lens on Life series, which obviously starts on the 25th of May 2026, 6 PM UK time, right here on my YouTube channel. SteveOfficial is when that movie is when the first episode drops, and then obviously there'll be more as the weeks go on. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, and if you've enjoyed listening to me ramble on about my movies that I've watched for the first time this week and reviewed as well, then feel free to leave a like and feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what films you guys have watched this week, whether it's old, new, in cinemas, in theatres, on VHS, Blu-ray, DVD, and even on streaming service as well. Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, if you are new around here and you like what you see, feel free to hit that subscribe button down below as well. I'll be back next Sunday with another movie wrap up. Probably will be looking rather knackered, forgive me. Like I said, I've got such a busy week ahead, so, you know, if I am knackered, I apologise. But anyway, I'll be back next Sunday at 6 PM UK time with another episode of Steve's Movie Wrap Up right here on my YouTube channel, SteveOfficial. Until then though, it's goodbye. Thank you for watching. See you guys again in my next YouTube video.